Alright, here goes. Start loose and light. Just building up shapes. Don't want to commit to anything too early. Just getting very basic lines in. When you're sketching, you're not trying to get it perfect with that first line. You are slowly defining the proper path. And with each pass over a certain area, you get a little bit closer to exactly where you want it. So I would call that my very rough layout. I've got all the elements in place where they need to be, but I'm not really too committed to anything. Haven't put any shading in yet. So from there, one method to do, I'll start defining the edges, and usually pick the darkest areas of your drawing. That's what I do. So start kind of lining. Just find the spots that I'm happy with. A lot that goes into a skull to make it look proportional. Just an area over here. Cool thing about them though is they don't have to be perfect, and everyone you draw can be a little different. Just kind of do interesting things with the shapes. So you've got 4 teeth right in the front. And you've got your canine, that kind of 2 canines on each side. This one and this one. And then the 4 in the center. Same on the bottom. 4, canine, canine. And then you've got 4 more that go back here, but you can't always see all of those, so they get a little thinner as they get tucked behind. Something like that. And usually off of this canine, you'll get a little bit of a, I don't know what you would call it, like a root into the bone. And all the teeth kind of have that, where it's sort of a raised up area. Bit of an edge here. Now, bouncing around a little bit, but this area right here sticks out quite a bit, so there's usually a harsh shadow under that. This just defining my shape a little bit more, and you can see how it's deviated from the original basic layout. It just gets you your shape, but you refine it as you go along. So now I've roughly sketched it in there. I'll start to define the shapes a little bit more with some shading. I'll usually start with my darkest areas. So got this area in the nose is where we'll have the darkest spot. And I'll commit to it being pretty black. Get a little lighter. Also here, get this darkest area right as it gets into that pit of the eye socket. This ridge right here is very thin, so usually keep a very thin white edge and then shade off of that. This area too is where your sinuses come in. I'm no doctor, but something like that. So there's like a cavity right there, and that's recessed back a bit, so you shade that area. You know what I mean there? So when you're shading, there's two reasons to shade a spot. You've got, because the light's not reaching it, of course, so you, like say under this brow bone here, no light would be reaching that, so it's going to be one of our darkest areas, the same as the inside of the tip of the nose here. But another reason why you would shade an area is because it's further away, so things in the background tend to get a little lower contrast. So just because something's further away, if you're going for realism, you'd want some element of shading on that too. So because this part of the jaw is further away from you, you would want to make sure that it is not as bright as something that is in the very front, like the tip of this jawbone. Same here, there's a bit of a ridge right there. Everything under it is going to be receiving less light. So we'll make sure that everything gets a little bit of coat of shading. Same with this. This jaw sits under the cheekbone, so that will all be shaded a bit. Pretty dark back there because it's kind of tucked under the jawbone of the skull. This paper has a bit of a texture to it, so it's not the most ideal for a pencil drawing, but it'll work. Ridge here around that ocular bone. This here also dips under a bit, so we shade that. Don't want that area to look flat, so we'll show that that kind of wraps around there. Forgot to color or shade in the rest of this eye socket. Deepest pit of the eye is sort of back in the middle, but a little bit closer to the center. Looked at a lot of skulls, and they're all a lot of different things going on with them, depending on ancestry, the ethnicity of the skull. There's different shapes. So this area where each one of those teeth is going further back on the side, so we don't make that look flat. Get it a little darker as each of these side teeth go further away from us. Just as kind of a finishing touch, I usually like to bolden the outline a little bit more. Maybe fill in some areas solid black. It's a little darker there too. to use a less textured paper next time. Get the idea.